Hello everyone, Joel here from Golf Monthly. I hope you're well, and you join me on the 9th fairway at the stunning Adare Manor here in Ireland, where I'm one of the first journalists possibly in the country to have a look at the new Titleist TS2 and TS3 hybrids. I've had a good test of them down on the range as well, but I just want to kind of talk to you about what these clubs are all about and what you can expect from these TS2 and TS3 hybrids. As the name suggests, these TS models are more aligned with the woods. These visually look a lot like the TS2 and the TS3 driver and fairway wood that we saw launched last year. We've got a lot of the shared same technology as well, so thinner crown, titanium crown, and a much thinner face. These are 16% thinner faces than on the 818 hybrid, so that's going to lead to a lot more flexing impact, faster ball speeds, more distance. You've got the same kind of crown colour as the TS woods as well, so more of a darker black finish on the crown compared to the grey colour that was on the 818 hybrids. And as similar to the 818 H1 and H2, there's two different shapes here with TS2 and TS3 depending on your preference and how you swing the club. So the TS2, as expected, is a larger hybrid. It's more forgiving, it's got a wider sole, it's going to get the ball up in the air a little bit more easily. And this is designed more for golfers that want their hybrid to look more like a compact fairway wood. Maybe you've got quite a shallow angle of attack. This is going to bruise the turf really nicely for you. It's got the Sure Fit CG here on the hosel, so you can change loft and lie as well. Conversely, the TS3, now this is a more compact hybrid than the TS2, but Titleist have made some adjustments to the shape of this hybrid as well. It's a bit more offset, and it's made it to be a bit more like an iron that they've kind of flattened off the toe a little bit, so it's a bit straighter in the toe section, and it's definitely more pear-shaped than the TS2, which is a lot more rounded. The TS3 also has the Sure Fit CG cartridge. It's very well hidden actually, just inserted in the toe here, so you can adjust those weights depending on the ball flight, the shot shape bias and the trajectory you want to see. You can dial this hybrid in a bit more than you can the TS2. Okay, so James, we're here at Adare Manor. You've got new Titleist utility irons, U500, U510, TS2, TS3 hybrids. We're going to test them all out today. Talk about, first of all, how these are different to the TMBs that came before, and obviously the 818 hybrids, how they are different as well.
Yeah, so what we do at the moment is, as part of the set composition, we want to establish from a fitting perspective what your longest iron's going to be, and then we generally find that there's a gap from your fairway metal, if you've got one in the bag, to your longest iron, and it's bridging that gap. So we've now got some new utilities that are in the range. We've got U500 and a U510. And then we've got the hybrids and the TS2 and the TS3. As we go through the fitting process, we can establish what the longest iron performance looks like, so we can check all the performance like we have done on the previous ones, and then identify that gap in there, but then work alongside you as well, because some people may be guys that play in windy conditions on the links, like the long iron type thing, and they want to have a lower ball flight and get it running when it lands out. Other people may struggle with a par 3 on their course to hit a certain distance and stop it, so something like the hybrid is going to give us that nice angle, coming in steep with a lot more spin and stopping control, so it's working with you alongside that one.
And differences in performance, what are you expecting in terms of launch spin with these two?
Yeah, a little bit high, a little bit more spin with this one, and a little bit more penetrating and lower with this one, maybe a little bit more workability as well.
So where are we going to start? We're going to start with the forerunner of the CB, see where we are with that, and
Yep.
then move into the other options.
Exactly that, yeah.
Let's do it.
So just did a little bit of testing with the hybrids. We compared TS2 versus TS3. Again, as we have with a lot of these tests, we've kept the shaft consistent throughout, and we just checked the heads against each other. Hit the 2 first, and we've just finished hitting the 3, and it does exactly as we'd expect to. So the 2 was actually a little bit more efficient. We got a little bit more ball speed out of it. It definitely peaked a little bit higher and spun a little bit more, and that resulted in 8 to 10 yards further distance as well. And it looked a little bit easier for you to control. The dispersion was a bit tighter with the 2 versus the 3 as well.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that kind of behind the scenes look at me testing the new Titleist TS2 and TS3 hybrids and comparing them with the U500 and U510 utility irons, which I'd already tested. There are a few things, now a few days later here at West Hill, reflecting on the experience and what these clubs are all about. There's quite a few things that you would need to consider and I am thinking about, certainly when it comes to switching into one of these two hybrids and potentially one of the utility irons as well. You know, when it comes to comparing the two hybrids together, it was interesting that I was actually surprised at the results that I got. I've got my phone here with some of the key numbers on. You know, I've played the H2 in the past, the 818, which is the slightly smaller model. So, you know, I've always gravitated towards slightly smaller shaped hybrids. I currently play the Callaway Apex, which is probably one of the smallest hybrids on the market. And yet, I definitely hit the TS2 model much better. This is the slightly larger, more fairway wood-like shape. I definitely hit it more consistently, I hit it further. And what's interesting with the TS2 was that it was a lot faster, you know, 4 miles an hour more ball speed on average, definitely struck it better as well. That would definitely contribute to the extra ball speed. You know, it's definitely a lot more efficient for me from that larger shape. You know, going to be a bit more forgiving, a bit more stable as well. What was interesting for me was that the spin was pretty similar. They were both spinning at around the 4,400 mark. You know, you heard James earlier talking about how the TS3 should be lower spinning, but I actually didn't find that especially for me, but I think that the strikes and the way I hit the club might have something to do with that. And actually the TS3 launched a bit higher for me, but the TS2 was 9 yards longer on average in terms of carry distance. And also the other thing that stood out for me was that the flights were very similar. So, you know, I was expecting the TS2 to fly potentially too high, so a bit too much spin, flies a bit too much height as well, and not give me the distance and rollout that I was really looking for, especially if I wanted to hit it off the tee. But that wasn't the case, and I think it really does go to show that you need to test both of them to work out 100% for sure if one model is going to be better for you than another. Don't go into a fitting expecting one model to be better for you than the other. You need to try them both. You know, go in with an open mind and just base your decision on the results that you see on the range. And I think looks play a really important part as well. You know, I always thought that I would like the more compact shape, but actually not a huge fan of the kind of boxy look of the TS3. You know, when I set it down, you know, the extra offset there as well just didn't really suit my eye. So I kind of felt like I would hit the TS2 better just because I prefer the look of it. And that did translate into better strikes, better performance when I was hitting it. So don't underestimate the importance of finding a hybrid that you really like the look of. The final thing I would say is that it's really important to understand the performance that you get from your longest iron and how that fits in with the fairway wood as well, in terms of the distance gaps that you need to plug with either 1 or 2 utility iron or hybrid clubs. You know, I was hitting one of the kind of prototype CB models in the 4 iron, which is normally the longest iron I play, and I was really struggling to hit it. I wasn't getting the strikes I wanted to, the distance was down. Realised I wasn't striking this CB model particularly well, moved up to a slightly larger, more forgiving model, and it was chalk and cheese in terms of the strikes and the performance. I was getting much better flights and strikes with the more forgiving model, and so that was really important in terms of making sure I got a hybrid to fit the gap that I wanted. That, you know, if I was to put that long iron in play, you know, which I definitely would do because it was more easy to hit, you know, that's really important in terms of gauging what loft and the carry distances you want to hit with that hybrid club. So make sure if you do go for a hybrid fitting, you understand the performance of your longest iron. And if you're not happy with what your longest iron is currently offering, make sure you make an adjustment first before switching into a hybrid or utility club. You know, I think the other thing that's really stood out for me finally is, having tested both the hybrids and both the new U500 and U510 utility irons, you know, I could go to either 4 of those clubs. They all offered me something a little bit different, and I think it comes down to really what shots you want to hit out on the course with those clubs. You know, the more compact ones, TS3 in the hybrid, U500 in the utility irons, they are generally going to produce a lower ball flight. So, you know, if you're hitting them mostly off the tee, those are the clubs that you're probably going to be gravitating towards, although they're not as easy to hit as the slightly larger U510 and the TS2 options. Definitely launching the ball a bit higher, especially in utility irons. And if you're hitting shots more into greens, so long par 4s, par 5s, maybe those options are the way to go. And they do give you a bit more versatility because you can flight them down if you want to, but they do go a little bit higher generally, so you can hit them both into greens and off the tee, whereas the other two are a little bit more one-dimensional, you know, slightly lower flight, more suited to shots off the tee, you know, on tight par 4s. If you really want to keep it down and get it running, links golf, into wind, those are the clubs you want to be gravitating towards. If I had to pick, you know, between the TS2 and the TS3, I'm going to surprise myself and I would pick the TS2. But if I was to choose a hybrid compared to a utility iron, the jury's out, because I really do like, as I mentioned in the previous video, the the U510 1 iron. That was a fantastic club, which I'm generally considering putting in the bag. So hopefully that's given you a good insight into what the TS2 and TS3 hybrids are all about, how they kind of fit in with the utility irons, and the kind of thinking process you would need to go through when considering what option you would put in your bag. But that's it from me. So from a sunny and warm West Hill Golf Club, it's goodbye.